Krishna Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanajari Yamuna Tira Vanajari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Kunja Bihari, Radha Kunja Bihari, Hare. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Balaji, Mai Subhadra. Jaya Śrīnath Ji, Jaya Bhagavatam, Jaya Śrīnath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Śrīnath Ji, Jaya Bhagavatam, Jaya Śrīnath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya. Prabhupāda, Jaya Śrīla Prabhupāda. Jaya Jaya Prabhupāda, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Paramātmā Parivranikacharya, Master Satyashimardas, Divine Grace, Founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda ki, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Their Most Merciful Lordship, Shri Shri ki, Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladev, Mai Subhadra ki, Shri Ji, Shri Balagopal ki, Shri Gaurnitai ki. Go Premanand. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the Lord Spirit of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Did you say 16? 17. 17. 16 was pretty long. Right?
Yeah, very long.
And 17. You found out. Done. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam todayam dirayet nasta prasya badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhagavati naistiki. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 17. Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Ishvaro Me Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Ishvaro Me Yat Padmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya Yat Paraparam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya Mam Shranta Vaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvi Shtam Mam Shranta Vaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvi Shtam Na Praharan Ya Anudbhava Nirasta Chitta Na Praharan Ya Anubhava Nirasta Chitta. Trying to find the proper meter for this. Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Vishvaro Me. Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Ishvaro Me. Yat Parapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya. Ya Parapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya Mam Shrantavaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvishtam Mam Shrantavaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvishtam Na Praharanya Anubhava Nirasta Chitta Na Praharanya Anubhava Nirasta Chitta.
Satye Vritta Kumitatmada Ishvaro Me.
Satye Vritta Kumitatmada Ishvaro Me.
Yat Padapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya.
Yat Padapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya.
Mam Shrantavaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvishtam.
Mam Shrantavaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvishtam.
Na Praharan Yat Anubhava Nirasta Chitta.
Na Praharan Yat Anubhava Nirasta Chitta. Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Vishvaro Me. Yat Parapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya. Mam Shrantavaham Arayo Ratino Bhuvishtam. Na Praharanya Nirasta Chitta.
Satye Vritta Kumatinatmada Mada Ishvaro me.
Satyevrita kumati natmada ishvaro me.
Yad pada padmam abhavaya bhajanti bhavya.
Yat parapadmam abhavaya bhajanti bhavya.
Mam Shriranta Vaham Arayo Ratino Bhavinishyam.
Mam shrantavaham arayo ratino bhuvishtam.
Na Paranyat Anubhavani Rata Cheta.
Na praharanyana nirasta chita. Satye.
Satye.
Regarding a chariot driver.
Regarding a chariot driver.
Vrita.
Vita.
Engaged.
Engaged.
Kumatina.
Kumatina.
By bad consciousness.
By bad consciousness.
Atmada.
Atmada.
One who delivers.
One who delivers.
Ishvara.
Ishvara.
The Supreme Lord.
The Supreme Lord.
Me. My. Yat.
Yat.
Whose. Paramātmā.
Paramātmā.
Lotus feet.
Lotus feet.
Abhavaya.
Abhavaya.
In the matter of salvation.
In the matter of salvation.
Bhajanti.
Bhajanti.
Do render service.
Do render service.
Bhavya.
Bhavya.
The intelligent class of men.
The intelligent class of men.
Mam. Unto me.
Unto me.
Shranta.
Shranta.
Thirsty.
Thirsty.
Vaha.
Vaha.
My horses.
My horses.
Araya.
Arya.
The enemies.
Enemies.
Ratina.
Ratina.
A great general.
A great general.
Bhuvishtam.
Bhuvisham.
While standing on the ground.
Standing on the ground.
Na. Did not.
Did not.
Graharan. Attack. Yat.
Yat.
Whose. Anubhava.
Anubhava.
Mercy.
Mercy.
Nirasta.
Rasta.
Being absent.
Being absent.
Chitta.
Chitta.
Mind.
Mind.
Satyevrita komati natmara ishvaro me. Yat parapadmam abhavaya bhajanti bhavya. Mam shrantavaham arayo ratino bhuvishtam. Na praharanyaranubhava nirasta chita. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, by Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda. It was by His mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage Him as my chariot driver. For He is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. Please repeat. It was by His mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me. When I descended from my chariot. To get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem. For my Lord. That I dared to engage Him as my chariot driver. For He is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. It was by His mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage Him as my chariot driver. For He is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. Purport. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the object of worship both by impersonalists and by the devotees of the Lord. The impersonalists worship his glowing effulgence, emanating from his transcendental body of eternal form, bliss, and knowledge. And the devotees worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are below, even the impersonalists, consider him to be one of the greatest historical personalities. The Lord, we have this going on every morning at this same time. The Lord, however, descends to attract all by his specific transcendental pastimes, and thus he plays the part of the most perfect master, friend, son, and lover. His transcendental relation with Arjuna was in friendship, and the Lord therefore played that part perfectly, as he did with his parents, lovers, and wives. While playing in such a perfect transcendental relation, the devotee forgets, by the internal potency of the Lord, that his friend or son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although sometimes the devotee is bewildered by the acts of the Lord, after the departure of the Lord, Arjuna was conscious of his great friend. There was no mistake on the part of Arjuna, nor any ill estimation of the Lord. Intelligent men are attracted by the transcendental acting of the Lord with a pure, unalloyed devotee like Arjuna. In the war field, scarcity of water is a well-known fact. Water is very rare there, and both the animals and men working strenuously on the war field constantly require water to quench their thirst. Especially wounded soldiers and generals feel very thirsty at the time of death, and it sometimes so happens that simply for want of water one has to die unavoidably. But such scarcity of water was solved in the Battle of Kurukshetra by means of boring the ground. By God's grace, water can be easily obtained from any place if there is facility for boring the ground. The modern system works on the same principle of boring the ground, but modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately wherever necessary. It appears, however, from the history as far back as the days of the Pandavas that big generals like Arjuna could at once supply water even to the horses, and what to speak of men, by drawing water from underneath the hard ground, simply by penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow, a method still unknown to the modern scientists. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshusun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Today they use a system they call witching when they want to dig for a well. Śrīla Prabhupāda says that it's available everywhere, but for those who know the science of finding. So similar to this in India, which they still use, as far as I know, in a court of law as evidence for, oh boy, I'm getting away from the subject matter.
No, you're not.
Well, you don't know what the subject matter was that I discussed before, but we'll get into it anyways. They still use in a court of law evidence from the testimony given by Brahmins who can take the branch of a tree by mantra. You take off the branch of a tree And the tree can answer questions that they ask. The Brahmins can ask the questions of the tree, and the tree will give them answers. Now this today is being used, it has been found out, I think it's been known for a few hundred years now, they knew it, to find wells when the first early pioneers came. I don't know whether the native indigenous peoples had means of this way, but they used all the rivers and lakes, because at that time, all the rivers and lakes were all pure to drink from, which now we have totally polluted practically every water stream in the whole United States. I used to drink from a water stream, though, that flowed up from the ground, filtered. See, the natural process that Krishna has made with the earth for mankind to be able to dwell here is that that water that comes up from these places being described here is purified by the way that the layers of the earth have been made automatically by the sifting of the sand and all that. And so you could drink. And when Grandfather Bhishma was on, as Śrīla Prabhupāda is explaining, become the most thirsty when we are about to leave our bodies. When Grandfather Bhishma lay on the battlefield for several days because he was waiting for the proper time to leave his body, which is also a science unknown to humankind at this particular time in history. But Krishna now giving us full knowledge of the mantra of his holy names then fulfills all the other requirements we would normally need in order to go back to Godhead, in order to be removed properly from the universe. But Krishna promising in Bhagavatam that he would take care of all those things at the end. But getting back to the point being made in Bhagavatam about water flowing under the earth, and the Brahman on the altar, we have to ask, pleading all the sacred rivers to come to the presence of the water that we take from the general public water. And then the water that is in our ears, there is a little tiny bag of water inside the ear. And from what I understand, that is coming from they call the Trivedi, Jagat Guru's last name, Trivedi.
Okay.
The meeting of the three sacred rivers, and this water is actually in our eardrum as well. It gives us the ability to hear. But see, when we take the Brahman thread then on the knot that the mantra to create the bread was created with, to create the thread. And then we ask the sacred rivers to come into the presence of. When Bhishma Dev was on the battlefield, he requested the one and only Arjuna, because he respected the value of Arjuna's request, the purity of Arjuna's request to bring this water. But see, Arjuna could buy the means that he was given mantras, probably by Dronacharya. But here, Krishna is himself realizing, Arjuna is himself. Krishna is giving Arjuna, after he's leaving, after he's left, he's giving Arjuna this realization and bringing into memory the experience that Krishna had given him on the battlefield to reveal to him who he was. Because up until that time, they had been sharing a particular relationship as cousins. So in order for Krishna to share relationships with us as family members, he has to cover us over with the knowledge. And this is called Yogamaya. There is Mahamaya and Yogamaya. No, wait a minute. I might be getting the two mixed up. Yogamaya, if I'm not mistaken, is that which covers the gopis from knowing that Krishna is God, right? And then Mahamaya is the illusion that we are all under, in this material world, attracted to the illusory energy of Krishna. So now I'm going to get in a little bit to the idea of the self that we are all carrying with us, that we have been perceiving of for millions and millions of lifetimes. And now, in most languages, as far as I know, I don't have full knowledge of all the languages of the world, but the idea of myself in itself is seemingly a contradiction. I'd love to explain this with a blackboard.
Okay.
You see, we could have a circle with me and have a circle with the self.
Okay.
Is there any difference there? And yet we are putting the two together in one word to say that there is, as though I am something separate from the self that is in possession of a thing called a self. And so this also extends into our perception of the soul when we say, my soul. As if I am something separate from the thing I'm describing as me. So most languages have put us into this confounded situation with it. And so then what to speak at birth, our parents. Now, I won't say the same way for Indian parents, because Indian parents see the culture of Krishna has so carried over into Indian present-day culture that they will name their children after names of Krishna or qualities of Krishna by the culture that they're born into, by the influence Krishna has had in the past. But similarly, in America, in most families, they are named after previous heroes that they considered to be their heroes, who were not self-realized and who have no knowledge of the value and the importance of the naming of the self by the spiritual master. And so this is what we call initiation. The soul comes to the place where it is brought by the Guru to the understanding that we're not these physical bodies, which we've been believing all of our life that we have, that we are the bodies, and that it's the only means we have of existence, and then at the end of life, then it's all over. But in Krishna, then the spiritual master teaches that there is this distinct difference between the real self that we are, the real us, and the physical body that we're now given for a short period of time and the opportunity, the privilege to use. And now Bhagavatam is revealing to us higher forms of life that make us to understand how low a form of life we are ourselves engaging in the material universe, because we have been brought here by our own personal desires to enjoy the energy of the Supreme Person. So see this process, by the initial stages, giving the understanding about the difference between the self and the physical body, is also in that understanding the completeness of the philosophy. Because to know and understand the nature of the self, the soul, what it is the same nature as the body of Krishna. Only we are in a little small, we're like a drop out of the ocean. But if you taste the ocean, a drop out of the ocean, it tastes the same as you would if you took a whole mouthful. So similarly, the soul being the same substance, but in a limited measure. So what is so glorious, see, about Krishna consciousness? We're brought to the understanding that not only do we have physical senses that have to be brought under control by the mind, and we have an ability to distinguish between the mind, the self, which the soul is, and the Supersoul, or the Paramātmā. And see, this language that we use when we say, myself, in effect, it's suggesting that there are actually two beings here, isn't it? There's the self, and then there's us. But see, that self, that is referring to automatically by the soul's self-consciousness of it being built in, that self is the supreme being, self-consciousness, of the supreme consciousness that is being shared with us in this body as we open up to allow Krishna to share his consciousness with us, which is what Krishna consciousness is, giving us a process to engage us in that enables us by the engagement in that energy, which is Krishna's energy, but it is his internal energy. See, we are so accustomed to manipulating his external energy, and that's what's also being brought out in this verse. This is what the impersonalists are looking for, the perfection of the external energy for their experience of it in the body. So they're looking for all the senses to be satisfied in all this thing, which comes automatically by revelation or realization of the soul, the self that we really are. And so when the spiritual master recognizes the qualities of our lives that we have developed to this point, and he recognizes how we can use those qualities in the service of the eternal energy, then he names us accordingly. And this name helps us thereby too, to help us understand the qualities that Krishna is wanting us to bring out in our lives. So then, someone gets a name that is a name that Krishna once had. And we say, what, is he trying to make us God? No, but every incarnation of Krishna reveals, according to time and circumstance, that relationship he is giving to the human beings on the planet at the time by the use and control of the particular modes that he's dealing with that need to be dealt with. So there is not so much prominence, the modes of ignorance, in Satya Yuga. So they're not having to fight the influences of Satya Yuga, in Satya Yuga, to the extent that we are now. There is only one demon on the whole planet in Satya Yuga. And so the participants on the whole planet, if there is only one demon, everybody else is devotee. And see, these aspects of Krishna's personality that we can develop automatically puts us in that das, anadas relationship, because then we're seeing that simply by serving this to the potential that we have the ability to develop, automatically Krishna is going to carry out for us all the otherwise required necessities in previous yugas. You know, leave your body, you had to do it at a certain time, you had to be facing a certain direction. Grandfather Bhishma did all these things. And then he asked Arjuna to bring him the water, the sacred rivers. Yeah. And Arjuna shot his arrow, and then water came right up into Grandfather Bhishma's, satisfying his need for the water.
I'll see you in a few days, okay?
Yeah. So, how we also come to the realization, this chanting then, by the chanting then, we are coming to understand how to distinguish between the mind, the soul, and the supersoul, when it says to us in our everyday form of worship. And we're seeing here what worship is actually. Because these things that are being looked at by the world as extreme forms of adoration for a living being that we are crediting to having all power is revealing to us in the relationships of devotees that this attitude that we are developing towards Krishna as a form of etiquette is commonplace among all the participants in the spiritual world of that lifestyle that they've been granted the ability to live with. Because see, offering someone food, which is what we're doing in our act of the internal energy that we're engaging in, which we call love, in the amount of love we have towards Krishna that we put into that food by the consciousness we have while we're doing it. We're not doing it to satisfy our own likes. We're doing it because we're concentrating on what Krishna wants at this moment. What does Krishna want now? And here in the temple, we're limited to what Krishna has provided, but that's all under his control as well. But it's a simple act of preparing food, which everyone has to do. So, if we have in our minds to grab a snack here and there and run to the candy store and buy a little snack here and there, we have no thought whatsoever when we're putting that into our mouth of it being a means of experiencing eternal spiritual consciousness. Because our minds are in the gutter. We're in a hurry. Rajaguna is moving. We're at work. We got to get here. We got to run there. We got to do this. We got to do that. Controlled by the modes of material energy. When we're preparing for Krishna, there's also a force. There's a specific time that's supposed to, in fact, Krishna reveals that time is the most significant aspect of the whole offering. Being on time shows Krishna the respect that, yes, you are the Supreme Most Person. I am in service to you, and therefore I want to reveal, I respect the fact that you have a schedule. Just like when most people pray, they're thinking themselves, they're going to take God out of whatever he's doing and have him listen to them, right? See, this is how we know that Supersoul with us, that concept in Christianity, and as well presented through Buddhism, but in a more subtle way. That by emptying the heart of sinful activity, allowing God to share with us that consciousness that purifies our minds by studying activities that God is engaged in, those activities then become a part of what we think about. Just like Bhakti Vinod says in his song, he fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. Yeah. And see, this is happening on a regular basis to the Paramātmā who are in complete communion with Krishna on a constant basis. He's guiding them today where to go. And sometimes, in some cases, he's foretelling them somebody's coming to visit you. You can do that too. And then give you specific instructions to give to those people. And if it doesn't happen for you to be able to see aforehand that they're coming, still when you immediately greet them, Krishna gives you the sensitivity to know where they are and how to meet them where they are and lift them out. Most people being controlled by running here and there and have to meet this schedule, have to meet that schedule, directed by the modes of material energy, are suffering because of it. It causes pains in their brain. Brain pain. What brain pain is? They call it a headache, right? Another name for it is JOB, big headache, or BOSS. That's what headaches are made of. People go home and then they worry about having to please this human being that might be looking to find something wrong with them, you know. Whereas Krishna, his approach to humankind is he's trying to find something good that he can accredit us with as being his devotee. And he's finding ways to give humankind the easiest way possible because he knows the influences in this latter age that the earth goes through, every cycle that it goes through, these seasons, is most powerful. During this age, the influences of evil are more powerful. But as I discussed in previous classes, evil is simply a missing of the mark. So the same energy that people are using to perform evil deeds which will cause them suffering, in many cases it's the same deeds, even criminal. Now look at a criminal. The most heinous act we would say is murder, right? Killing someone. Yet look at the battlefield. That's all they're doing. That's all they're trained to do. That's their profession. That's their number one aim, killing somebody when they're out on the battlefield. So, the same act that a criminal is engaged in to bring death to another living entity, those that are most highly exalted in society are out on the battlefield doing the same thing. But being exalted by society as the protectors of society, yet the same act, killing another human being, which criminally is called murder. But by the one who is a hero, it is called the protection of society. And so both have a different reaction. And so what we are saying as an institution of the Krishna consciousness movement is that if everyone will engage in the eternal energy being made available by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through this process of chanting, you don't have to join the institution even, but take up this chanting and automatically will come the desire for more absorption in that which gives us life. Because what we are all longing for in this pursuit of the manipulation of the material external energy is the satisfaction that can only be found by entrance into and given the privilege of the experience of the divine internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because this is what Krishna concentrates on. And then automatically, like as Lord Chaitanya reveals, according to time and circumstance, he didn't reveal that form, that impersonal form of his material energy to everyone he went and contacted, which he could have. The blinding force, they said, it was more powerful than millions of suns. But that's what they were looking for to find in God, believing that that energy, that external energy that they think he is in completeness. Mayavadis, as we call them, as well as the term designates impersonalists, see the power of God as greater than God himself, as greater than the person we call God. But in effect, if God is a person, then they're saying the energy is more powerful than the person. And we're saying that the power is controlled. Not only is it controlled, it's controlled by laws that are given. In order to be obeyed, a law has to be known, isn't it? You can't obey something you don't know. Of course, you break a law ignorantly, you're still guilty of it. But in order for God to hold us accountable for things that are his laws, it stands reasonable that he would give us those laws for us to know what they are. But as we see, he gives those laws to the people according to the state of consciousness they are in. For example, the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. That's being given to people who are killing. Thou shalt not steal. That's being given to people who are stealing from other human beings. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. That's given to people who are worshiping other forms than the real God. And see, those people who are breaking those instructions, God give according to time and circumstance. What laws does he give to the members of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness? We have 10 laws, the keeping of which we know perfectly will bring us to a state of consciousness so purified we will come to understand what pure love of God is. Because these laws are uplifting. They give us by the application of them. When you're out in society, engaging in your normal activities of life, you're not having to burden your mind with how many laws you're afraid of breaking at the moment, isn't it? You're just living your normal life. You don't have to worry about laws at every moment. But here, when you're concentrating all your attention and your mind, you're gaining the ability to gain full, perfect control of all the senses of the body and the subtle body, because it is that subtle body we're affected by in nighttime when we're sleeping. That subtle body takes us up to give us a video demonstration of the control the mind has over us, that we have put the mind through in the daytime. The mind will drag us through what it wants to at night, isn't it? But now when you surrender to Krishna, Krishna will guide those dreamy states that we are in. I once saw a devotee at a temple. You know, it's after all the morning program and everything, and he's just barely waking up. I think this was Chicago somewhere. He was having a dream about Krishna. So when he woke up, he didn't want to wake up, actually. He just wanted to keep on sleeping, you know. I couldn't tell him it was late to get up for a devotee to get late, up that late, you know. But I could see that these experiences devotees have with Krishna, everyone unique. Everyone is having a completely different, unique experience with Krishna. As many forms of life as there are. And it's all Krishna's pleasure. He takes pleasure in every single form of life that there is to lead them. The power of Krishna's potency is revealed by the lowest of society being brought up to the highest. Stealing for a living, deceitful living, cheating people, robbing people, bringing harm upon people at every moment of their life. And yet Krishna brought them by his association to a place where they could eventually receive pure love of God. This is to us a great example of how powerful that these keeping of these regulative principles, we have the 10 regulative principles we recite every morning, the 10 offenses against the holy name. And then once you recite them in the morning and you concentrate on them, automatically that consciousness that you've developed is moving you through the day to perform those activities that are pleasing to Krishna, that are free from all those offenses. And that's what makes you a pure devotee. You no longer harbor those things in your mind, thinking that the energy is yours to enjoy. Because enjoyment comes so fully, you don't need any more. You have all the enjoyment you need or want. We have too much fun. It's incredible. There's a reason every day somebody's born. And every day there's a celebration to be had. For some reason. Make up a reason. The sun's shining. Is there every day the sun shines even though we can't see it? It's shining every day. There's just as much reason to be happy for it shining when it's gloomy outside as there is for it to be shining when it's shining, when we can see it shining. It's still shining. So Krishna's potency is unlimited in his devotees as compared to what is being limited by the use of the material energy. It's almost like trying to drive a car without the motor. But worse than that, even if the motor was running, they don't know the direction to drive in. They're going in the opposite direction, which is what the involvement in the material energy is. It's the opposite force. Krishna's force is pulling us to that eternal dwelling. And the external energy of Krishna is pulling all of those that want to find satisfaction within it to itself. Same way Krishna pulls us to himself. And it is by our desire that we get pulled. So if we desire Krishna, Krishna pulls us in. If we desire Maya, Maya pulls us in. That's where we go. We go where we want. We have to be careful what we want. That's the thing. And that's what the chanting will purify our hearts for, because as long as we're desiring to hear the sound of Krishna's name, that in and of itself is a pure thought. And Krishna then gives the impetus. Krishna then gives the positive experience we're longing for in the pursuit of happiness and beauty and magnificence and experience of association with devotees that have a positive perspective towards eternal life that no one has in the freedom of their consciousness that they think they're experiencing by the manipulation of the external energy. Because the nature of that external energy is it's a trap. It's a baited trap. Everything in it is bait. And all it has to do is catch the person who is using it. By its involvement with it, you are ensnared. We are ensnared when we use the external energy of Krishna with the hope of gaining the internal experience, and the two don't mix. Because love is an internal force, and destruction is an external force. When we take the destruction, the destructive forces, even some forms of food, as taken into the body, have destructive effects. So everything in our life that we're involving ourselves with as a form of energy can be either for our benefit or for our detriment. And most of which has to do with the way our consciousness is geared. All of which, again, relates to the control being given over to God. People think, well, how do you give God control? How do you give God the ability to control your life? You make the decision that God's ways are better than your ways. And then when God takes control, then automatically everything you've been desiring becomes satisfied. And you don't even have to make extra special effort for it to happen. Because the consciousness you gain when you gain Krishna consciousness. Krishna is the source of everything. He owns everything. He can manipulate everything he wants to. He can give us the ability to pull anything out of anywhere, the clear sky, and just produce it right here and right now. But if we have our aims towards that, we will miss the greatest treasure, which is knowing the presence of Krishna at every moment with us, sharing this experience of life with us, always. And that's why we regard one another as Prabhu. It's not you, it's Krishna in you that has given you the ability to control your senses, that gives you then the ability by that control to be called Prabhu, master of the senses. But that's Krishna in you, right? Paramātmā. Yeah, he's the real master. That's why we call him super soul. We are a soul, and he is super soul. And I've made mention several times. We have a hero in America that is a fantasy hero, but who gives some people an idea to open up their consciousness to the possibilities of human experience. They call him Superman, right? Faster than a speeding bullet, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. But see, all these things we accredit to superhuman beings. Krishna actually has all those abilities without the limitations of the frailties, because Superman could be killed by kryptonite. With Krishna, and see, also, when a person becomes Krishna conscious and they start to realize the qualities of the soul that we have all our life been taught, that is the perfection of the human being, is actually what the soul is in its natural state of existence. So we all are that perfection as manifest as souls. But we're not manifesting in that way because we're blocking the mirror of the soul that we would be when our hearts are purified to the extent that they will be as we make progress to the spiritual path that will bring us to the state of pure love of God, pure love of God. When nothing else is clouding our minds, then that will only be revealed, pure love of God. That is the aim, and that will be the highest consciousness that we will know, and we will want everyone to have that. And that's what should be drawing so many people to our temples, because they want to find what we have. They want what our treasure is. And our treasure is that what we should want to give everybody, because that's the only way it increases. This is the one treasure. The more you give, the more of it there is. Association is that way. The more you give, the more you get in return, and the more there is. This is what we're contributing to the ocean of that transcendental bliss when we chant. It contributes to that ocean of transcendental bliss. It's actually transforming every atom that is affected by the airwaves even. And Krishna allows it to fulfill his purpose. It goes around the world 7 times. We don't see these things, of course. We don't see the radio waves we're getting from the atmosphere every day we walk in general public. We're being bombarded by thousands, even millions of electromagnetic forces that are put into the air by these huge dynamos and these generators. And to a great extent, this is the cause of a lot of our suffering. But it is by the pursuit of our ability to perform functions that are carried out in the spiritual world by everyone. You want to talk to someone when you're in the spiritual world, they may be on another planet somewhere. See, in Vaikuntha, there are many planets. Every planet is as big as our universe are here. And with the ability to go visit them, just like Krishna was revealing the ability with his queens, taking them to other planets in this universe. He was doing that, yeah. Bring a parijata flower for his queen from one planet. Rukmini wanted a parijata flower, only available on another heavenly planet. And then when Sita Devi, what was it? She wanted something. Krishna, when they came back out of exile, Krishna brought her, it says, on a flying machine. They went to another planet from here. So these things were all commonplace to Krishna, as they are commonplace as well. And I suspect they don't need machines in the heavenly planet. I mean, in the spiritual world. Only in the heavenly planets do they need machines. But if you talk to Tirthapada, you would think there are only flying creatures that even in the heavenly planets. But Bhagavatam brings out specifically calling them machines, and specifically describes the carrier of, like Brahma rides on a hamsa, he rides on a swan, he has a swan as his carrier. So there are also living entities, souls, whose lives they have been in service to those, just like Narada Muni has a Veena. But that Veena is a living soul. They are buddies, they're friends, they're eternal associates with each other. But see, we don't look at musical instruments as something we would think of as our friend, right? But that's how it is in the spiritual world. Everything is alive, and everything serving the same purpose. So we all serve together and experience love in life in the highest way possible. That's what Krishna consciousness is. Experiencing life the way it was meant to be. Gotta end. Time has come for all good men to serve their country. What are there as questions? Any questions, any comments, any realizations? Somebody like to share something? John. John. Hare Krishna. Granthara Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai.